When you look in the mirror, what do you see? When I look in the mirror, I see a small, tiny girl. Well, the same tiny girl which you are looking at right now. Oh, hang on. My high heels put some extra inches to my height today. Bless me. So they said, "Look at you. You're so short. You look like an undergrad student." These are all common words people say when they look at me. I remember one day I was looking at a picture of myself and I burst into laughter. In the picture, I was standing in between tall colleagues on my left and right. I looked like a tiny little elf standing between giants. I swear to you, it was like, "Hello, how are you doing? How's the weather up there?" I was giggling looking at myself in that picture. Now you might be wondering, how was I able to laugh at myself in such a way and talk about it so comfortably? Now let me tell you a story. This is a true story that has fundamentally reframed my way of thinking and actually changed the way that I live and work to this day. This is where my story begins. Over 2 decades ago, I started my career. And throughout my employment stint, I struggled. Among colleagues, I have always been seen as the junior employee whose skills and experience are undermined and overlooked. And among students, I was simply seen as another student, like them, who happened to teach them. All of this was because of my small, petite size and what others regarded as a youthful look. My entire career, I was surrounded by people who had their mind programmed to think, she's too small. If we gave her important roles, nobody would ever respect or listen to her. She's too young and naive. How would she hold such important responsibilities that require so much skills and experience? At first, I denied all these comments. I was like, no, you don't understand. I am not a junior employee. I have a wealth of experience and skills. But after many years of being hammered with comments of the same kind from right, left, up, and down, I gave in. It was like I was walking straight in and shaking their hands in agreement. Yes, you are right. You're way better than me. I am just a small girl who is so fortunate to be in the same workplace as you. It felt like I was being hypnotized by them to believe that I am not good enough and that I can never match their brilliance. This episode of my life was hard to process. Over the period of being exposed to such an atmosphere of discrimination at work, my self-esteem was drained out of me. My confidence weakened. I developed anxiety. Whenever I surrounded myself with those I regarded as more superior, more experienced, and way more important than me, I couldn't speak eloquently. I wasn't able to make eye contact with them. I felt useless, worthless. I became quiet and withdrawn. These feelings made me so uncomfortable with myself because A, I knew that wasn't who I was, and B, I started to feel like I didn't know how to function properly anymore. And at that point, my conscious self was triggered. It was like I became aware by getting a punch in the face. That moment of self-awareness made me realize that I had subconsciously turned my state of being into a thing to be loathed, where I ended up feeling doubtful, inferior, intimidated, and all sorts of awful feelings about myself. Now, here's the thing. The second you start internalizing what others say about you, you give them the power to write your life story. They hold all the cards. The way they discriminate and categorize you will become a narrative for yourself. They will dictate what you should be. I look young. And so their narrative is, I'm simply an undergrad student, naive and clueless. I'm small and petite. And so for that, the narrative is, I'm secondary, subordinate, no skill, no experience. And so this is the kind of life that I am in, regardless of country, society, workplace, gender, or religion. The discriminatory comments about my small, petite size and youthful look have always been the same to this day. The only difference between my life then and now is my frame of mind. As an academic, I am a huge believer of impactful leadership as a way of life. But sadly, I didn't see a reconciliation between what I preach and what I practice. A truly impactful leader is someone who's done their inner work, honed their confidence, worked on their mindset, and is secure in their role. That's what I advocate. But the way I practiced my life was the complete opposite. My inner self was not at peace. My confidence was nowhere to be found, let alone my mindset. It was totally clouded by those discriminatory comments. I internalized every single comment. I embodied every little ounce of it. I gave in when those discriminators categorized and labeled me. I gave them full autonomy to create a narrative about myself. And you know what? The worst thing of all? I willingly engraved that narrative in my brain. And so, putting my academic knowledge into practice, I looked back to see the root cause of the whole issue. What actually did go wrong? What did I feel so insecure and skeptical about? Why did I doubt my own skills and experience? I questioned more and more. Then piece by piece, things started to make sense. I learned that it was not about them. It was not about what they said or the comments they made. It never was. It was me. It was me the whole time. I was responsible for what happened to me. Oh yes, they always made my exterior a point of focus, but it was me who gave them the power to have full control over me. It was me who internalized their comments. It was me who accepted those comments and let them define me. I preach that as a true leader, the first person you need to lead is you. The first person that you should try to change is you. You can't change them. You can't make them stop saying what they say. You can't force them to alter the narrative that they have labeled you with. You can't be like, look, you're wrong, just shut up. I wish it was as easy as that. But no, it doesn't work that way. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to do what I preach. I'm going to start with myself. And that meant changing my perspective and reframing my thought. You know, what underpinned this, I'm not as good as them, I'm not as important as them, which I believe we all know these feelings. I'm not rich enough, intelligent enough, beautiful enough, young enough, tall enough, thin enough. The thing that underpins this is internalized discrimination, where you experience direct discrimination and you unconsciously assimilate and make those false judgments part of your nature. And in the end, it becomes a vicious cycle from which you cannot escape. I was there, and I struggled before I was able to escape. And so in order for the escape to happen, you have to bring back your self-consciousness. You need to go deeper than your intellectual understanding. Every little step to escape is a serious battle between your conscious and subconscious mind. And so I was ready. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going in. I'm going to take charge of myself. I'm not letting their words affect me anymore. This is it. It's time. But whoa, little did I know, while my conscious mind was trying to summon a correct narrative about myself, my subconscious mind did not want to cooperate at all. It refused to erase all the false narrative that was already there, stuck in my brain for years. And so I had this back and forth fight with my inner work. It was not easy. It was a long, tough battle. So here's what I learned. Our mind is wired in a way that it believes whatever we tell it. And after many, many years of telling it, I'm not good enough, not important enough, I had formed a solid belief within me that was not easily breakable. This is what is known as a fixed mindset, where we believe that our qualities, skills, and abilities are set in stone and cannot be changed, which can be good from one perspective, but when it is wired on a false narrative that has been internalized, it is destructive. And so here's what I did. I had to reframe my thought process completely. It was like I was working on a blank canvas and starting to take baby steps. I had to unlearn the way that I lived my life, which was based on false narratives, and relearn the correct way all over again. The one thing that pushed me, inspired me to push through and win over my inner thought was conviction. Ashmiza, you have to keep pushing yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you. Once you have that conviction, your mind, your heart, and your soul will come back to consciousness fully. I had that moment. The moment where I truly observed and contemplated. The moment where I actually saw and realized that I too have what they have. I earned what they earned. I've accomplished what they have accomplished. The tasks I do, the efforts I put in, the ideas I come up with, all of these are on par with those I regard as superior to me. Pretty much everything they do, I am just as capable of doing myself. And the fact that we are working under the same roof of the same system, it's enough evidence to me that, like the rest of them, I am just as capable, just as talented, skilled, and experienced. So once you get that realization of truth, you should keep on pushing through. You need to make sure that your way of thinking, saying, seeing, feeling, and doing are tuned in together. This is what I went through. It was a lot of moment-to-moment practice, self-reminders, commitment, and a strong support system. And so, despite all the discriminatory comments and behaviors that have never stopped to this day, I went from the pity mindset of, look what they say about me, look how they treat me, how they make me feel, to what I actually say about myself, how I actually treat myself, how I make me feel. This is the power of perspective and reframing thought. They may tell you that you're so small and so you're less important. Or in a different scenario, they can joke about you being fat, or your ears are simply too big, or your skin is too dark, or your English accent is not English enough. They can make hundreds of comments about you. So use your inner work to address this. Now, by no means do I mean to suggest or generalize that the entire work of dismantling discrimination has to be done within. But we do need to have a correct narrative about ourselves and a set of practices to guard us when we enter that part of the work, so that we are not drawn to believe that discrimination is only about something out there. This story of my personal quest shows clearly that once you reframe your thought process and start changing the way you see things, the things you see will change. It impacts what you do and the outcomes you get. It works like magic. It's like God gives you a second chance to live your life differently in a way that you truly deserve. And more importantly, this part of my life has opened my eyes that second chances will only become visible to you once you allow yourself to see them. It's all in here. So when I looked at myself in that picture, I was able to laugh out loud and talk about it so comfortably, openly, because I have the capacity within me that deeply understand the fact that people can have all sorts of perceptions when they look at me. But their perceptions are not my mistake. They are not my weaknesses. This small petite girl, which you are looking at right now, is soon reaching 50 years of age. She's a polyglot, an author, a researcher, a keynote speaker, and a university professor who has been working in academia for over 2 decades across the UK, Malaysia, and now the United Arab Emirates. I'll leave you with this. Our job is not to prove them wrong. Our job is to work within ourselves so that we hold the right narrative about ourselves in our own brain. Discrimination is not only about them out there, but it's also about us, the implicit discrimination that we internalize. It's an inside job. Thank you.